Welcome to the Rezbt-S podcast. Rezbt-S, Rezbt-S podcast, a podcast about speaking BT, based Tagalog. My name is Rez Toledo, and you're listening to my personal podcast. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening, and thank you for clicking, and thank you for being part of this space and letting me become part of your space as well. Podcasting is just a lot about recording thoughts, recording ramblings. Sa kultura natin, it's called daldalan. Nothing wrong with that. Daldalan. Um, ang ganda ng word na daldalan kasi yung dal, isang syllable na lang dali. Madali lang. Hindi naman sa pwedeng ease of use, pagmamadali, or pagmamadali, hurry it up. And when I use this sort of way of speaking, it's usually I'm usually pertaining to the onomatopoeic nature of Based Tagalog, and the understanding of language, which recently is getting smaller and smaller. Parang in my mind, in a lot of thinkers' minds, language is getting a lot smaller. Um, not in the small in the sense na we could figure it out, but it's not enough. Small in the sense na it's not enough. So I don't know I don't know why that would be important to a listener. Actually, I'm being challenged to think about who's gonna listen to me, who's gonna listen to this, and the play on that for me as a thinker would be to think about content versus creator, product versus manufacturer. And I think this way because I came from this industry, being exposed to a lot of Chinese culture. Not a lot, but yeah, I mean the Filipino Filchi culture of what we know of China. What I've seen from China and Hong Kong. You know, the behind the scenes of how industries are created. That's how I see things being understood na or being broken down. And that's, I think, what a lot of scientists are calling the first principle thinking, which is breaking down things into parts. What their purpose is, existential reasonings, mga ganyan. That's why we get to complicate things. That's why engineering is so sought after. That's why, as long as I can talk about something that I think is of value to me, then I can sort of assume that it could be of value to you as a listener. So I'm always uh, looking for that other factor. I'm still young. I'm looking for that new factor to better my recordings, to better my modulation, how to play about my character. And in a way, it's like a tutorial. It's like a tutorial kind of podcasting method, right? Kung saan ang pinaka nangyayari lang is let me just clean my EQ up a bit. There. Ang pinaka nangyayari lang is what do you call this? Me recording my most recent thoughts, my most recent status. And I'm all about status as a musician, as a but that I mean when I say as a musician, parang as someone who has a love hate relationship with music, love hate relationship with creating music. My very first experience with it was parang sort of feeling forced into playing the piano. I think all pianists are sort of forced or tricked into playing the piano, right? Or playing with a machine with such a mechanical force like that. Wala, it's like the biggest thing that you could possibly control and create with, but you're pressured as a kid to use something like that. It's so weird. That's how I developed my discipline, I guess, because as a kid I would practice for 4 hours. One teaching session would be 5 hours. I think something like that. So, bawal umiyak, diba? Yung 1 hour, kasi alala ko yung first hour, puro exercises lang. So, isipin mo sa jogging, kumbaga kung sa jogging, 20 minutes pa nga lang, pagod ka na eh. Sa teaching ng pianista, 40 minutes dapat practice lang yun. Yung fourth hour, dun ka lang, after the fourth hour, dun ka lang pwede mag-enjoy. And that was a very traditional way of learning instruments. There's no other way. There's no other more traditional than that. And the level that I achieved with that was, I remember I was the second student to the Promil kid na pianista. So I've always had, stemming from that, I've always found myself thinking about how to be humble about my approach towards sharing, my approach towards learning is that, I mean, if I could remember correctly, ever since in my life, I've always had the position in Team B, right? Which is Bangko or the reserve. But there's another way of thinking of that. You are reserved because it could be that you are actually an outlier. Malcolm Gladwell, right? An outlier, not necessarily the best also, but just an outlier, special. Something that they can't quite put their finger on. And yun nga, if you were like that, now I'm talking about my childhood, of course. If you could think of like something like that from your childhood, maybe you are an outlier. Maybe you resonate with other outliers, and that's a really tricky thing. That's what will make you sort of want to hide. That is something that will make you sort of settle with who you think you are, in the sense na baka hindi mo pa rin kilala yung sarili mo. So the greatest venture that you could actually embark on in terms of creating a career for yourself, creating a knowledge base for yourself, the greatest adventure that you could embark on is an adventure, a journey of self-discovery. Kaya nga, nung medyo mga panahon na naiisip ko na yung Based Tagalog, tahimik lang ako nun. Ang ginawa ko is very much ang pinaka-trip ko lang nun is magsulat. So, to be honest, I think I could reveal this, and I have revealed this, that there's an unreleased, unpublished Someday Dream book, which is my project, it used to be my my music project. Everyone knows that, I think. But if I'm a musician from Manila, the mainstream musicians here know me as a pop singer-songwriter. But now that I am nearing my 30s, I have actually evolved this life's long work. Parang, what do I call it ba? Ang tawag ko dito is parang life project. Yung Someday Dream na ginawa ko na siyang something that evolves with me. If you could think about that, so that someday dream is actually a life project, something that I could uh, para siyang it's a multi-purpose kind of thing. Hindi lang ako yung gumagamit ng string na to, ng string na someday dream na nanganak ng kung ano, no, because I am a writer. I remember I made an episode, 'di ba, na writer nga pala ako, tangina. It's funny that way, 'di ba? Parang and because I sometimes forget, na um being a skills person, I have evolved into something that records, something that could play the piano, something that could resist from making music, something that could, I live and breathe the arts as much as possible. And I do explore around a lot of other things. So I have been called very experimental, and also I like in the previous episode I do enjoy very esoteric knowledges, which is I think is the real nature of a masterful knowledge based building. So and then coming into this saying na it's someday dream na Tagalog, it is a brand of my own. It is a creation of my own, but only in the sense na I'm aware that it is like something that ang awkward nga nito when I talk to people about this topic, kasi parang I'm so bent on it seems like I'm so bent on being narcissistic about that I created this thing. I created this thing. Laging ganun lang. Oh, I created this thing. I created this thing. You know why I'm like that? It's because the deeper level kung bakit ako naging ganun na is because no one talks about creativity as much. I only get to talk about creativity, creating stuff, art stuff, music stuff whenever I meet old people, whenever I have to demand or when I have need for something, imbis na actually pag-usapan ko lang yung need ko for that older person, an elder or someone I need service of, a specialty, an expert, I end up talking about creativity because, they might know me as the guy who created Someday Dream. I have songs that are out there, as a musician. And then, from that standpoint pa, sobrang nire-respeto yung mga musikero sa Pilipinas, man. Lalo na sa Metro Manila. Lalo na kung nagsusurvive ka as a musician, you're known as an artist, you're sort of being treated like an outlier na hindi ka na naaabot ng ibang tao. Laging ganun. So, laging ganun, yun yung torture of being someone who looks onto this as an industry, as someone who's like training, para seeing it as a professional livelihood, diba? And I only know a few good friends who are actually professionals in the creative scene. Most of the others are just, I wouldn't say professionals, but like, alam mo yung parang mayaman na sila, yung talagang, I guess may trabaho naman na sila or masaya na sila. Masaya na sila dun sa meron sila. Tapos gumagawa rin ng content. Yun nga yung pinaka-okay nga din. Kasi parang, for me, parang yun, parang ignorance is bliss in content creation, diba? Parang the bliss of content creation, meron din talaga dun yung bliss of content creation. Kasi madali lang naman mag-edit. Especially these days, everyone has a phone. You can edit with your phone. You could create content with your phone. I am creating content with my phone, obviously. And with other things, right? Ang pinaka masarap ulit-ulitin dito is hindi naman lahat, the ironic and paradoxical thing is hindi naman lahat ng bagay nasasarapan na ako. Maybe it's a product of being curative when it comes to a lot of things. I curate my friends, I curate my connections, but not to the point na I could be mean, to the point na I could be ghosting a few people I've liked people I've collected, so to speak. So parang very babae yung treatment ko sa art talaga, which should be. So I do have that side na of parang female intuition. Out of ano na lang din, out of hanging out with a lot of older women. Not a lot, but really formidable women in the art scene, I think. And then not even the art scene, but who are deeply inside artists but cannot sort of let that shine through because of the Filipino mindset na kinakalaban ngayon ng maraming tao, di ba? The Filipino mindset, because we are just about uh, into waking up as cosmopolitans, people who are actually just living as part of this world. So, when speaking my base Tagalog, parang laging kinoconsider ko lahat, especially nung inaamin ko naman na this is a theory of everything. I do have to inch in and by degree, sort of measure where I'm at with speaking the theory, talking about the theory. Because although ang purpose naman talaga ng theory is to collect sort of ways of thinking na mag-a-adhere dun sa hypothesis ng theory na yun. So if my hypothesis is that Based Tagalog is a sort of the new coinage of the Tagalog and English, my parang data wants to differentiate Filipino from Based Tagalog, Taglish from Based Tagalog, Angalog from Based Tagalog, because I'm not yet, I think, a linguistic expert, but no, in reality, no one is an expert in grammar, because every other English speaking hybrid will have a different way of using grammar, especially if you study their dialectic, their sayings, mga kataga, mga phrases that the language is always about. Ang sa akin lang, alam mo yun, lagi ako nag-i-English. Yun ang dating. Ang dating, lagi ako nag-i-English, but I have been saying that I think a lot of who we are actually is speaking Based Tagalog. Lalong-lalo na if you study the tropes. So, may narrative factor yung pag-speak ng Based Tagalog. It's my default mode when talking or when recording this podcast. So, wala namang iba eh. Wala namang ibang talagang constants of podcasting are talking about language, talking about how to put it out in a way na concise, might be too wide for someone. But the point is, if you are looking at it enough times, hearing it enough times, if you put something into writing, if I could put something into writing, then it would help me because I have already recorded about it. I could listen to it. I could go back and forth. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship. A love-hate relationship. There have been listeners who have been parang pushing me to talk about love-hate. Why? Because you love work, right? You love work. You love your work so much that you take it seriously for it to benefit and fruit in your life. Nothing against that. But as a young person, you love relationships, right? You love being able to relate with people who have stories of why they got there in the first place, why they arrived in your life in the first place, why you connect in the first place. And as I would say a weak sort of a cute insight naman. Hilig na natin sa mga cute-cute eh. Diba? Parang kawaii. As a cute parang way of thinking into it, it has to mean something. Because alam mo yun, the paradox of it all though is that in reality, we live amongst a sea of meaninglessness that we, let me slow down for a bit. A sea of meaninglessness that we don't even parang recognize that we see around. Diba? A sea of meaninglessness. Parang maraming things na hindi nag-make sense. But we just shun it. We 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 as we as Tagalogs, parang kunwari hindi natin nakikita. But then and that's exactly why I think challenging yourself to add more factors. Like ako, I add more factors. Incremental factors. Parang, I do one podcast more in 1 week. One, you have to measure. You have to learn how to measure. Para ma-plus one mo, minus one mo. Makabag-backtrack ka pag may iba kang naramdaman. Like for example, playing around with your circadian system. I think is the body's own timing routine of your sleep cycle, right? Circadian. It refers to your sleep cycle. So sometimes, yeah, I do go on like sleep fasting kind of thing, but I don't count that as much as I do count my calories, you know, or as much as I do not count, but then like as much as I take it seriously. All things in moderation, right? All things in moderation doesn't mean na purket alam mo na yung all things in moderation. There's just some sort of weird profanation of bastardization of na uso talaga sa translation ng Tagalog to Tagalog Filipino, parang ganyan. Parang balahura lang basta parang balahura yung laging pag pinangungunahan kasi natin. And then you get my, I hope you get that. Now sometimes pinangungunahan natin yung translation as if it was a race, as if the translation thing was like kailangan na, there was a need for it, diba? At least siguro kung alam mo yun, may kailangan na ng translator ng pera, diba? Or kailangan na ng translator na kasi mapapatay na siya kung hindi niya gawin yung pinapagawa sa kanya ng mga Hapon, diba? Or nung pinapagawa sa kanya ng mga speakers ng Ingles. There's always those factors, and it all adds up to errors. And now if we're trying to smudge away some errors and come into a parang at least be able to prove that we are entering into a Based Tagalog enlightenment phase, because I can see naman na a lot of people are happy with the BT term, right? With the BT terminology. I can hear it also, because I don't know why. I don't know why. I guess it's just my corner of the internet, right? Corner of the social media sphere. Na I could see when people like progress that we present as. I acknowledge the fact that I Someday Dream is or the movement that I create for my art movements that I parang managed to start somehow blossom into to avant-garde avant-gardian realizations, and then I don't take that up unto myself na I put a pin on myself every time I get compliments or every time I hear, because the downside on me is I'm a highly abstracted thinker na it just adds to my vocabulary to be able no I don't think of it actually as like that, diba? Parang bukod sa natutunan ko na yan sa vocabulary ko, mostly the string. I think I do adhere to a string theory, to the string theory of the universe talaga na kumakapit lang ako dun sa time and space ng mga words and stimuli na naririnig ko. That's how my mind works, right? I'm very much stimulated and affected by a call from a family member, a comment from someone from the clan, for so to speak. Another podcast that I just ingested. Um, because at the end of the day, whatever is part of my container is also, the thing that I could transfer into digital containers. Parang ganun lang kadali yung ganun lang kadali yung way of ano ko buhos, kumbaga yung pouring. It's funny. Now what's funny about that, I think personally, is I become more sensitive sometimes. I become more behaved. I become more, you know, less narrative. I think a lot of things are overrated. You know, I think a lot of things are. We should be questioning a lot more things more, especially as Tagalog-based Tagalog, and use one of the purposes of based Tagalog is to be able to use a standpoint, a hypothesis na if you could work to solve other things, like kunyari, based Tagalog of an understanding of other cultures, if that could help you understand where that integration comes in. Diba? Yung one of the lagi kong ang linya dito is sabi ko na kung di mo naman kailangan Tagalogin pa. Usually, ang purpose ng pagtatagalog ko when I'm speaking about higher learning stuff is pag mag-explain ko sa magulang ko, kasi parang actually ang pag nag-explain ako sa magulang ko, trends lang pinag-usapan namin trends, string theory nga, diba? Kung ano yung latest string that we could sort of himayin or like brush upon. Parang ganun lang yung nangyayari. But when I'm explaining a lot of scientific stuff, I do, yun nga, the main purpose of Based Tagalog is just to have a hypothetical mind that presupposes that a lot of English words are part of the Based Tagalog dialectic now, and are accepted as, especially from a scientific point of view. Because one of the biggest arguments about the failures of our local and historical dialectic is it doesn't seem to want to accept a lot of scientific findings, scientific explanations, wordings, because it would rather, for example, Filipino mindsets or Tagalog mindsets or old mindsets would rather stick to what they know and keep parang talking about tradition is tradition, bossism is bossism, ganito na, nakagisnan na, ganyan. But and yet it is not able to present a new solution, a new historical path na pwedeng maging highway towards progress. Na pwedeng instead, ang nangyayari pa sa gusto nating lengguwahe, sa old language, ang nangyayari pa is nagiging backward talaga, 'di ba? Parang paatras na lahat, para atas na yun. Tapos parang we are forced to think that is right because a lot of people do that, and a lot of people are forced into resonating with that choice. But that is not real resonation, because as long as some few people could, especially children, could resonate with the sound of other things, then that thing is worth really looking into and worth talking about for a long period of time, for an even longer period of time. Kesa bumalik ka lang dun sa sa dati, nabalikan mo. Yun nga, pag nabalikan mo, kung paano kung sobrang bilis mo bumalik, 'di ba? Sobrang bilis mo binalikan yung memories mo. That just goes to show that memory is so overrated. Parang, yan yung parang sinasabi na maalaala mo kaya mentality na which is just one show of one tapos na nga tayo na, diba? Wala nang ganun. Diba, one show that our parents grew up with. Diba, grabe yung kumbaga pagka-poison nila sa string theory ng cultural TV, you know? And that's how string theory works for me, in the sense, I don't, just by saying, by thinking that the fabric of time is actually comprised by a lot of strings. Ang isang string, hibla, 'di ba? So pag naisip ko na yung hibla string, naisip ko na PC, bandwidth, all these frequencies, engineering, the principles of parallel lines, parallelisms, parallel worlds. If you want to get into that, that's what it allows me to think of. And that is actually string theory, kasi naalala ko si Michio Kaku, yun ang pinag-uusapan niya lagi eh. Lagi niya talagang pinag-uusapan yun, na a world where that doesn't so much, parang hindi na pinoproblema yung existentialismo. Growing up in college, existentialism talagang yung pinaka nakakalitong nakakagago talagang usapan eh. Lalo na if you list a couple of famous parang crazy philosophers that have presented a lot of great thoughts about existentialism. Because I remember when we read the Transhumanist Declaration, na talagang gusto natin i-limit, bawasan yung existential risks na nakikita natin. And as long as we could talk about existential risks of social platforms, digital workspaces, digital lifestyle, as long as meron tayong kultura na ganun, at nakikita na natin na at least we're trying. At least some people are trying, and you are trying to really think about, ano ba? Am I gonna be silent about issues with my knowledge, with the vastness of my knowledge, or with the little that I have? What is my move? What is your move that matatanggap mo sa sarili mo na patungkol sa mga social media stuff, toxicity, and yung laban sa internet? When it comes to these kinds of things, you have a limited amount of, kumbaga, magic points. Limited amount of magic points, because you're not a wizard. You're still training to become a mage, right? Parang ganong mentality ba, which is I think closer to the agenda of lessening existential risks, right? And applying sort of a magic realism, sort of meta value on your value. Parang yung galaw mo may kapalit. Yung galaw mo, yung sinabi mo, may kapalit. Parang minsan I find that I have to hide my own posts because this is just, although I do mean although I do mean what I really want to type, what I really want to say in that moment, most times I actually parang I doubt the effect on me in the future, because being very future oriented, yun nga, when my memories come to haunt me back, it feels like a girlfriend. Sometimes thoughts feel like a girlfriend, songs feel like girlfriends, exes, parang. So yeah, I don't have time for that. I don't have time anymore to be a child when it comes to relationships. So you get what I'm saying, na this is a love and hate relationship, where recording is a love and hate relationship. Na if you were the object of the relationship, if you were the object of this relationship, me expressing this to you is actually kind of on the love and hate scale, na, diba? Love and hate scale. And I'm waiting for you to tell me something back, And that's why I appreciate a lot na, more than 10 na yung nagme-message sa akin you could totally add yourself to that list if you want to about something, like write me up in Based Tagalog. I really do appreciate it. You're like small letters, small ganyan. So, because I do get to share about small chats about it. And then, yeah, I will encourage you to send me voice messages so that just hashtag Based Tagalog if you have intent to join if that thing is designed, diba? Kasi matalino ka naman. If that thing is designed to become part of this show that you are actually listening to, para naman may audience rapport. But what I'm trying to express here now is yun nga that love-hate relationship with the thing that I do. The thing that I do. I don't know how do I acquire that. Kasi maybe kasi pinapalo ako nung pagbano ako magpiano dati or pag tinatamad ako magpiano, pinapalo kami nun eh. 'Di ba? Ng stick or just the weight yung bigat nung feeling that if I don't do better, if I don't inspire myself, if I don't move to motivate someone across the line, then on the other side, then I'm not helping myself. I'm actually just kidding myself na hindi na nagiging worth it yung loop ko. I am looping in and out. We all are. But hindi siya nagiging helpful, hindi siya nakakatulong, hindi siya nakakatuwa. 'Di ba? Mas nakakatuwa yung nakakarinig ka ng mga hindi mo naman pala talaga dapat pang inaalam. Mas nakakatuwa pa yun kesa ang puro nakapapakinggan mo yung alam na alam mo na, pati narinig mo na sa iba, pati kaya mo na rin namang ituro on your own. 'Di ba? Yung parang, alam mo yun, yung parang, especially if you are getting older, if you are remembering this from folks, this is folk speak after all. This is a lot of times I'm very pedantic about my base Tagalog. Parang kumaga, parang explain ko na rin to, hindi naman sa pag-uulit, but the way that I think the light in language works, the and what I mean by that, yung kuryente nung language is that, yun nga, which is what I've been practicing. If I talk to you in English, ang dating sa'yo Tagalog, di ba? Pag tinagalog mo ako, ang dating sa akin English. Because those are my only two languages that I know, di ba? And actually, bumabano na ako sa English. Recently, parang, I'm not, I've always been speaking. The whole time that I've been making a podcast, I have been actually just repeating that hindi mo ako nag-English eh. Nagtatagalog ako. Nagbe-base Tagalog ako eh. Base na nga eh. So, and I could totally feel its effects on me. It's nice, it's nice. It's like I couldn't describe it. It's like parang naputulan ng buntot. Alam mo yung feeling na ganun? Alam niyo ba yung feeling na ganun? Parang naputulan ng buntot. It's okay, man. I mean, I've lost wings. I've lost horns. I've lost a lot of hair. We lose it on a daily basis. We lose a lot of cells on a daily basis. And sometimes gusto ko talaga magbabad on an idea para at least the whole full thought of an idea is just what encapsulates yung nagiging panaklaw nung buong recording na to, diba? Isang buong take na kahit na nagdigress ako, in-address ko kayo, in-address kita, in-address ko yung sarili ko. I'm trying to break a fourth wall and use this medium really properly in the sense na makakapag-comment ka pa rin talaga pero hindi mo lang ata ginagawa. Pero namimili ka pa kasi, diba? Parang baka, I don't know baka it's, may sarili ka namang din timing diba? Parang, I have been appreciating really big criticisms about my work na if you don't kasi parang time it well, or if you don't come up from a point na you are actually close to my project all this time, And I don't know why. Parang ito, this is a commentary on silence, diba? So always ako, I have been, I have been parang into that, the commentary on the Pipino mindset, diba? Na parang ano talaga parang, alam niyo saan nanggagaling yun? Alam niyo kung saan nanggagaling yun? Ano yun yung sa pagkain mentality yun Kasi, Pipino, vegetables yan, diba? Pili. Alam niyo yung pili? Diba? Pili nuts. Diba? Lagi na pagkain. Lagi na lang pagkain para namang may science sa pagkain, 'di ba? May science sa sa making food, cooking food. Pero yung sa pagkain, wala atang science doon Tikim-tikim lang yun And a lot of the consciousness of who I wanna tap are like stuck in food, 'di ba? FUD na nga Ginawa food gutom. They don't maybe but ako I'm always hungry for parang trying to diba I did say that I do plan on becoming a public intellectual in the sense that I do enjoy thinking for a living, thinking of stuff for a living, and I do find that very noble, ironically, na yun na nga parang saan ka ba nakakita ng saan ka ba nakakita talaga ng Tagalog na na nag-e-express ng ganito the way that it should be expressed in this time. Hindi yung Tagalog na nagtatagalog lang kasi may trabaho siya maging Tagalog. Iba yun, di ba? Iba, I mean, di sa iba yun. Parang trabaho lang yun, di ba? Pero yung pagiging tao about pagsasalita, pagiging now in the recording of pagsasalita, parang ang hirap na makakita Sana makakita ako. Sana nga i-guest ko pa nga And I wanna gauge, diba? I wanna gauge that because although I am very positive about it, some people I encounter yung naging problema nila, hindi na sila daw marunong magsalita. Diba? You might have had that problem. Or parang baka kinailangan mo pang makinig sa ibang podcast or sa ibang madaldal para lang maalala mo, nga pala, ganyan nga pala ako magsalita, Ganyan nga pala ako dati magsalita or nare-realize mo at matanda na nga pala. Mayroon na nga pala akong experience enough to talk and chime in into linguistic reform. Diba? Linguistic reform is means na may mga bago tayong pwedeng sabihin. May mga bago tayong pwedeng kalikutin na salita. May mga bago tayong ever since meron tayong allowance na gamitin yung mga salita para i-forward maging progresibo dun sa tingin natin tama, 'di ba? Kaya nga lagi tayong 'di ba? Ano 'yun? Parang kumaga may monkey mind na pinapagana ko. Lagi yung inisip yun Ba't ba nasasabi hindi ba? Bakit? Naging hindi na ba tayo? Ikaw ba hindi ka ba talaga? Alam mo yun? Or gusto mo lang maglaro ng words talaga na yes or no, yeah. Hindi. That is that is where I'm still confused na parang ano ba talaga yung purpose ng having an onomatopoeic side of the mind, a very hyperactive onomatopoeic way of connecting meanings and connecting sound to meanings. I don't know. I'm not actually I am pala kind of the expert on that, diba? Tangina. Kasi wala namang iba lalo na yung mga singers. I have a friend of mine who's she's into arts also, but like written arts, visual arts as well. Na mismong naging expert na siya sa traditional ba yun? Archaic alibata. But I have arguments about that as well. That naman pwede i-argue, diba? But the point is, I maintain this love and hate relationship with whatever it is that I'm working on. I do maintain it. That's why I'm working on it a lot. I'm working on pushing myself to talk about this more. Because now that naaamin ko na I do have a love-hate relationship with this Ngayon, ang challenge ko na sa mga nakikinig is, talaga bang nagtatrabaho yung mga iba yung pinakikinggan, diba? Alam mo, yung proof ng nagtatrabaho, may nangyayari. Pag may sinabi siya, may nangyayari. Yun ang proof ng nagtatrabaho, 'di ba? Yun ang proof ng alam mo, yun ang karpintero ng ano, mga salita. Salita pa lang, karpintero mode na, 'di ba? Yun ang maganda. Parang kesa yung iba, puro salita. Tapos parang ano, kung di mo pa awayin, walang mangyayari. 2020 naman. 2020 na, dapat salita pa lang, gawa na. Ganun na tayo dapat kagaling. Especially from a public intellectual, public scheming mode. Yun yung responsibility ng mga tunay na lalaki. Pero ano lang, lalaki. Lalaki nga, lalaki. Yung lalaki, iba pa yun. Iba pa yun. Yun ang mga parang baka trans yun, diba? Transhumanist yun. Mula pagkabata pa lang, alam niya, hindi pa siya kumpleto kasi wala pa siyang wala pa siyang yung mga tamang butas at tamang pakiramdam na hinahanap-hanap niya mula pagkabata. I will end with that because I have no other way to express whatever it is that I want to say. But I think the words that I've used are sufficient. And I hope, sumasaya na eh. Pag sumasaya na, ayoko na. Parang mali na to. Hindi na to tungkol sa, kasi nga, Someday Dream is, hindi to tungkol sa masaya. Hindi. Okay? Thank you so much for listening. Sangtian Suche Sanjay Halayla. Someday Dream is back na. This is Tagalog na Someday Dream. My name is Toledo and you have been listening to the Rezbt-S podcast. For the video side, please do like and subscribe to this new and available content. Your clicks matter and help us big time. Bye guys. Bye. Peace.